Giannis Antetokounmpo just reminded everyone in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference semifinals that he is indeed the best player in the world right now, as even though he had his worst shooting night by a mile in this year's playoffs, he was still by far the most dominant player on the court against an extremely talented Boston Celtics team. What he was able to do yesterday against the regular season's best defensive team in the NBA was absolutely pick apart their defense, and this definitely woke the Celtics up, who seemingly walked through their first round matchup against the Brooklyn Nets. But what this tells me is that I think the majority of the world have been sleeping on what this Milwaukee team is capable of. The Celtics game plan resembled the one they threw at Kevin Durant in round 1 of the playoffs that worked to perfection, making one of the greatest scorers the NBA has ever seen hesitant on what he wanted to do with the ball in his hands, something we never see out of a player like him, as they also tried to trap Giannis as often as possible, throw double teams at him as often as they could, and collapse with multiple bodies as soon as he entered the post. And it was seemingly broken apart by Giannis in this one, who made perfect reads to find his open teammates, and they did the rest. This is a horrific sight for the Boston Celtics for the remainder of this series and even the rest of the NBA with how Giannis and the Bucks played, because if they are able to continue these efforts, in which I don't see why they wouldn't be able to, as I believe that Giannis is only going to come back stronger from his off night shooting the ball, and this means that the Milwaukee Bucks could very well retain their position in the NBA Finals and will be an incredibly tough matchup for whoever comes out of the Western Conference. Also, only a small percentage of people who watch my videos are actually subscribed, so if you end up liking this video, consider subscribing. It's free and it helps me out a ton. This Boston team prior to this series was one that many people, including myself, believed that they had the perfect personnel to handle Giannis and the Bucks for multiple reasons, being that they just limited KD to have his second worst playoff series in his Hall of Fame career, but they also have multiple guys that are among some of the best defenders in the NBA, in Marcus Smart, who literally won Defensive Player of the Year this year, Robert Williams, who was a runner-up candidate for that same award, two incredibly underrated elite defenders in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, and Al Horford, another strong presence in the starting lineup down low, and that doesn't even begin to talk about some of the guys they have coming off the bench. To tie everything together, they also have a coach who knows how to best utilize these guys to put them in the best positions to succeed defensively in Ime Udoka, who already drew up a great game plan to try to stop Giannis. On paper, they seem to be the best team that could have been able to stop the two-time MVP, yet he was still able to dominate this game in other ways and came away with the Game 1 win. As he proved yet again, there is practically nothing you can do to stop him. His shots not falling the way they did last night is a rarity in his game, something that you typically won't see him do too often, especially on back-to-back nights, as he shot just 36% from the field. Meanwhile, he still finished with 24 points while notching his second career playoff triple-double. So I'm warning you right now, because this was the first time he shot below 50% this playoffs, and was the first time since March 2nd against the Miami Heat, just to show you how rare this is for him, being that he shoots above 55% on the year. So just wait, because what he might do from this point on, as he starts to pick up exactly how Boston is guarding him, this series could very well end as soon as it started. The Bucks are even without their second best scorer in Chris Middleton for this series, as it doesn't look like he'll be coming back at all during any point of round 2, and this is only going to make that series that much more difficult for the Bucks going up against the top-ranked defense. But at the same time, this just adds even more of an emphasis to the type of performance Giannis had in Game 1, being that they were able to focus a lot more of their defensive attention on trying to stop Giannis, while they didn't have to deal with a 20-point per game all-star on the opposite side. Going into this series, this injury made the Celtics the favorites to win, considering how they were able to shut down the NBA's best scorer in Kevin Durant and played just 4 games in the process. So all the momentum seemed to be on the Celtics side coming into this one, but after Game 1, the momentum shifted quicker than anyone could have ever expected, as their home court advantage disintegrated away in the snap of a finger. And if the Bucks managed to win this series, getting Middleton back would have to make this team the arguable favorites to win it all, as if this healthy Celtics team couldn't stop them without one of their best players, I'm not sure anyone has the tools to do it once Middleton returns to this lineup and they're at full strength. Giannis Antetokounmpo Antetokounmpo has put up a performance to remember thus far this playoffs, as he ranks 3rd in points per game in the NBA, 2nd in rebounds per game, 4th in assists, and 5th in blocks, showing that he's been able to do it all on the floor. But what's even crazier is the fact that he's among the top of the league in the most categories, and this was all done playing just 29 minutes in one of the games against the Bulls in round 1 because of how much they were winning by. So technically his statistics could be even higher than they already are. And if you look at what he's able to do yesterday, Giannis, even without his usual touch inside the paint, accounted for more than 50% of the Bucks' total points with 55, counting his assisted buckets and points. And then you need to take in what he was able to do on the defensive side of the ball. Giannis, still being one of the best defenders in the NBA, has perfected his ability to roam in the paint and cover an absurd amount of ground in the blink of an eye to think twice about even wanting to enter anywhere near the restricted area, and this level of play was placed on a pedestal yesterday. His help defense was one of the key reasons as to why the Celtics shot their lowest field goal percentage of the entire NBA season at just 33.3%, in which they actually also recorded only 10 two-point field goals in game 1, which was the lowest in the entire history of their franchise. Being that this is one of the most historic franchises, if not the most historic in the NBA, the fact that they were able to make this kind of history with this franchise defensively has to tell you that this team is the real deal on that end, especially with Brook Lopez coming back halfway through the year. And that duo of Brook Lopez and Giannis and their dominance down low was the reason they forced the Celtics to take it to the perimeter and try to beat them, as they shot a whopping 50 3-point attempts in this game, being that the Celtics shot 3 for 20 from the field when Antetokounmpo or Lopez contested their shot, including 1 for 15 on 2-pointers, which speaks for itself how much havoc this team caused the Celtics with their physicality playing a huge role in this game. As a team, the Celtics shot 2 for 23 on contested 2-pointers, which is just 8.7%, the 2nd worst field goal percentage on contested 2-pointers in a postseason game since ESPN began tracking this stat in 2014. This game wasn't solely because of the dominance of Giannis, as other guys on this team had phenomenal games as well, and in particular Drew Holiday. I just really felt the need to make a statement on how big this game was for Giannis, as even when the best part of his game did not go the way he planned, and in this case it was his ability to dominate down low and score whenever he pleases like he's done all season, he was able to overcome his shooting lows and still manage to win in dominating style. His ability to adapt his game and show an incredibly high IQ and passing ability in this one, which has led him to rank 4th in assists per game this playoffs, where he's on a list with guys like Chris Paul, Ja Morant, and James Harden, just shows how lethal he is on every level of his game, as it was this playmaking ability mixed in with his defense being the thing that really turned this game on its head and allowed the Bucks to come away with the W in game 1. Somehow the 2-time MVP and runner-up this year still seems to be underrated in my eyes by how everyone looks at him, which still amazes me to this day, as he seriously deserves to be talked about as an all-time great, even though he's still midway through his career, by how dominant he's been so far. Although he won't win his 3rd MVP this season because of the generational season Jokic had statistically, as he'd honestly be the runaway favorite in practically any other year, averaging 30, 12, and 6 with over a block and a steal per game, shooting 55% from the field. Giannis Antetokounmpo is showing me why he's not only the best player on the planet, but depending on if he wins the championship this year, his legacy would only skyrocket to make him have to be talked about as one of the all-time greats in the history of the NBA. And to make matters worse, he's only just 27 years old, and it looks as if this is only the beginning of his domination against the rest of the league. Let me know down below in the comments if you think the Boston Celtics can bounce back in this series, but it's still shocking to me how Giannis was able to perform at this high of a level and impact the game as much as he did, even though this was his worst shooting night in a while, which just shows you how much left he has in store. But that's going to be the end of this video. I hope you all enjoyed, and as always, I hope you all have a great night.